What's up, guys? Jared here. Before we get started with the show, wanted to let you guys know about a very exciting event that I'm doing with the man right next to me, or this way, Mateus Rosarin. Mateus is a philosophy teacher, a scholar, and a gentleman, and together we are going to be screening and analyzing the 1976 masterpiece Network, directed by Sidney Lumet. This movie is one of the greatest movies ever made, and I don't say that hyperbolically. Director Paul Thomas Anderson, who made There Will Be Blood and Boogie Nights and Magnolia, cites this movie as his favorite movie of all time. It is extremely prescient, extremely captivating, and extremely intelligent. And Mateus has not seen it, and he doesn't even know what it's about, so I can't wait to get his reaction.
Dude, really looking forward to it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if everyone knows this. I think not, but I'm a very I really get interested in like deep, strange movies. Let's see how this one goes. Looking forward to the analysis.
So anyway, it's November 5th at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 7 p.m. Pacific. There is a link in the description, the Eventbrite link. There is a discount. The regular tickets are $7. There is a link at the top for a $2 discount for $5 tickets. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, November 5th at 7 p.m. Pacific. Remember the 5th of November. We hope to see you there. Anyway, on with the show. What's up, guys? Jared here. Today, I have a very special interview with a couple of gentlemen who reached out to me to be on their podcast, and I had such a great time that I figured that we could do something cool on our channel. So let me introduce you to the brother. I want to say the brothers Christensen, but it's not quite accurate. But three brothers who are South Park fans, who are members of the Church of Latter-day Saints. Ty, Cameron, and Jordan, how are you guys doing?
Great.
Happy to
Fantastic.
Be here.
Yeah. So what I want to talk about today is, we touched on it briefly in the podcast that you gentlemen invited me to. By the way, that podcast is called the Futro Movies Podcast. It's all about discovering old movies. And by old, I don't even mean that old. You know, like the kids these days call them old. But it's a really great podcast. You guys should definitely check it out. It's on YouTube. But anyway, one of the things we talked about briefly was the infamous Latter-day Saints episode of South Park. And what really struck me as very interesting is just about the Latter-day Saints community in general is that even though they've kind of embraced not only the episode, but also Matt Stone and Trey Parker in general. Would you guys say that that's accurate, or are you guys kind of the exceptions?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about other members. Yeah.
So I guess a little bit of clarity. We are all active members in the church. Like, none of us have been like excommunicated. None of us hold any ill will. We're all currently attending church meetings. We've all served missions. So that might give a little context. But I think a lot of members of the church are happy to share what we believe. So as far as, now vulgarity and violence and sex and nudity is always something that we typically stray away from when it comes to entertainment and media. So we're not the most upstanding model members of the church, if you will. When, we watch everything. We're like garbage disposals. We watch all movies and everything. So, but we do watch a lot of things edited on VidAngel, which is a great site, movie service that can edit content so you can customize it to your needs. I've got kids, so it's nice to edit some content that might not be as savory for the little ones.
But how, I guess my question would then be like, how ubiquitous is that episode within the community? Has everyone seen it? Has everybody at least heard of it? Actually, before you answer, let me just give, for people in the audience who have not seen the episode, the episode of South Park is called All About Mormons, and the gist of the episode is that a new family moves to town who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and they are over the top kind, over the top happy. And Stan initially thinks that the new kid, who similarly is smarter than everyone else at school, is better behaved than everyone else at school. At first, he's like, oh man, I'm going to kick this kid's ass because he sucks, And then he gets brought over to his family. His family is similarly like almost too perfect and too happy to even really be believable. And then eventually Randy gets over there. For a little while, they decide to be Mormon. But then intercut with this, there are flashbacks to the origin story of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the story of Joseph Smith. And the basic premise of the flashbacks is that it's hard to believe this story. And then at the end, there's, I think, a really powerful moment, which eventually I'll want to get to, where basically the student says, you know, you can think what I believe is silly, but at the end of the day, it gives me a great family, gives me a great life. And if you don't like it, you can suck my balls. So, okay, back to the question. In the church, does everyone at least know about it?
I think a lot of people do know what South Park is, especially in the Latter-day Saint community, especially kids our age. They've all seen or heard of the episode, at least in passing. And if not, know like the quotes from it, know pretty much most of it. I think there would probably be some.
Well, because in high school time, for example, I never had seen it, but all the kids in high school were like, "Oh, is it as accurate in the episode of South Park?" And I'd be like, "Well, you'd have to tell me what was in it because I don't know, because I hadn't seen it until just recently. So in the last couple of years, at least."
And they're explaining it, and you're like, "Yeah, it's pretty much accurate. It's spot on."
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about the episode. So I clearly hear that you guys think that the way that the family is depicted is very funny. Which of the plots, the A plot or the B plot, do you think is funnier? Just the overall disposition of the family or the retelling of the story of Joseph Smith?
Personally, I like the family better because it's kind of like a stereotypical member family. And then the Joseph Smith one, although it's like super accurate, I mean, they are kind of like hitting it pretty hard, like, you know, the whole dum 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 dum, and they just dum.
Yeah, and that's like the only thing that I felt like wasn't 100% accurate, just because they kind of portrayed it as like Joseph Smith doing it to like get kind of attention or like fame, and that like wasn't his intent or desire, and like he didn't go out and telling people and like all that stuff. And so that's the only reason why like they definitely like looked at it from a view of he's trying to like a cult leader.
Well,
you know?
well, I can see that though too, because I mean,
absolutely from the outside.
We served missions and all over the world, and so I mean, I don't know if it was the same in your guys' mission, but when I was in Argentina, a lot of people like all the time I'd be talking to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, God spoke to me at night, and then I started a religion," and so I saw a lot of that, and so I could see why, if you don't have a testimony of our church, like you would have a similar thought. They're like, "Oh, just like." You're just like any other church. Yeah. Any other church that essentially prayed, had this vision, and it's like God spoke to him to start this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable story, considering that Joseph Smith was 14 at the time, in 1820 when he prayed. Basically, just a little bit of history about the church. You know, Joseph Smith, you know, basically just took the question to God in prayer, saying, you know, which church should I join? And it didn't occur to him that Jesus Christ Church wasn't here upon the earth. So God the Father and Jesus Christ appeared to Joseph Smith and told him that the church wasn't here on the earth and that he needed to restore Christ Church on the earth once again. So little did he know he was actually going to be called as a prophet, you know, to be the mouthpiece of God and restore God's church. So it's pretty a remarkable story. And so that's why in the episode it references, and in that B plot, he finds this record and they talk about the Book of Mormon. And the Book of Mormon is like the keystone of our religion. It's fundamentally everything that pulls everything together. So getting a concept of the Book of Mormon and its teachings is fundamental to being a Latter-day Saint, a member of the church.
Speaking of the Book of Mormon, did you get our package that we sent you, Jared?
I did not. Is there a Book of Mormon in there? Yeah. Well, I mean, I have like 4 of them in Texas because I told you I grew up with Mormons, but but I did not bring any to Finland, so now I have one. So thank you guys.
It's on its way to you.
Yeah, but that was the thing I was super interested to hear about too. Was with like I love seeing them like depict the Book of Mormon, because in high school a lot of people would ask me like, "Is that your Bible?" I'm like, "Oh no, it's like a different book that we believe that like is another testament of Jesus Christ and talking and like complements the Bible." Yeah. So it was super fun watching their like interpretation of the Book of Mormon as well.
So I guess my question is, I imagine this was probably the first time you had seen the story dramatized in a way that like made fun of it or made it seem ridiculous or hard to believe. Is that accurate?
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. And
it's outsider perspective, right? Because we have like church made videos, a reenactment of the Joseph Smith first vision, you know,
they're not
story.
doing dum. So definitely a different perspective.
And so my next question is like, did it make you question, and I don't want to say necessarily question your faith, because I think there's a distinction between like questioning faith and questioning history. Did the episode make you question any distinction there?
That's a really good question. To me, it actually just made me feel a lot more empathy for people that look outside on the church in. Like, I like that Stan was truly trying, like, he really liked what the church was teaching. And then he's like, hang on a second, like, I have questions about this. Like, how does this make sense? Like, how are you guys buying this, you know? And so I'm a lot more empathetic to people that listen, because being exposed to anything for the first time, it can be kind of strange and radical. Like, you know, like I would even argue, like, there's an episode about Scientology, and I remember being like, oh, that's laughable, but I'm sure people watch this episode about the Mormons and they're like, this is laughable. So I had a lot more empathy, and in the sense that I'm like, oh, this must sound completely bonkers to people on the outside looking in. So
right, they're kind of like sister episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Like the caption, like, this is actually what they believe, or Scientologists believe. Like, it's really funny. Right. And so laying out the first history of the church, so for me, it's never been something that shook my testimony, because in the end, our testimony is like our fundamental faith. I've read the Book of Mormon, and I've prayed to know that it's true, and I've got my answer. So I believe that the Book of Mormon is true, and therefore, if the Book of Mormon is true, Joseph Smith was inspired by God to find and translate this book for all of us to read and enjoy today. So watching the episode didn't do anything to shake my faith, even at a very young age, because I think I was 14.
No, not shaking your faith, though. I know it's easy to say, but I do want to draw that distinction.
Yeah, that's totally fair. So I did shake my faith, but in the end, it just like I said, in the end, it just increased my empathy for people that have no idea what the Latter-day Saint faith is all about.
And I think it's always
Cameron
good
Jordan.
To hear.
So same question. Like, did it not necessarily affect your faith, but affect how you might interpret history?
Oh no, yeah, for sure. Like, I think it's always interesting, because I've like growing up with a lot of people who weren't like members of the church. They would always have questions and ask certain things, like, oh, like, what do you think about this? And this is super interesting. I've heard that you guys believe in this. And so I think it's always good to hear different perspectives, especially because like a lot of people believe kind of we're like a brainwashed like group or like cult, and so that's super good. Always hearing other people and like kind of their perspectives. And that was honestly, like, for me, that was kind of a distinction where it's like I had to realize, I'm like, okay, does this like change how I feel? And kind of like you're saying, like, it definitely did give me a different perspective where I'm like, okay, I could see how people outside of this could see how this is very different. But yeah, like, it didn't change too much for me personally. But I'm like kind of Ty mentioned, just a different, like, a greater perspective and understanding of what people might think of us.
Yeah. Jordan, what do you think?
So after watching it, like, I mean, there's just a few moments where I kind of rolled my eyes, just because there'd be like little details that I'm like, okay, I can see. Well, I actually liked what Ty said, is you kind of see from an outsider's perspective. It's like, oh yeah, I do feel more empathy for them, because I can see how crazy it might sound to somebody who doesn't like.
Well, when you put it that way.
Yeah. Well, and if you don't have a testimony, like, that's what we base. I mean, there's that song from the Mormon, what's the play called?
Book of Mormon.
The Book of Mormon play. It just says "I believe," which I actually love that song. My wife hates that song, but I love it. And it's just, but there's more to it, I think, than just saying "I believe." It's like gaining a testimony, which is like your faith. It's like exercising your faith, and the more you exercise it, the bigger your muscles get. And I just can see it from all the people, like in this episode specifically. There's a lot of people that get caught up on all those little details of like, oh, well, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Like, why, if Martin Harris's wife, she took the Book of Mormon and said, oh, I'm going to hold on to it. Let's see if you can come up with the same pages. Like, a lot of people get caught up in those little tiny details, but that's, I mean, obviously we have the other point of view from that same exact story, which was she actually hid it because she went to go change the pages. And so she could prove that, oh, Joseph Smith was a liar and stuff. So
right, even if he replicated the 116 pages to
exactly, so then it would have been altered.
They could have altered it just to prove Joseph Smith was a farce.
Okay, but I mean, do you even need that to maintain your faith? Because I mean, to me, it's like, even if it was just, even if like we were able to somehow objectively prove that it was just like the South Park episode dramatized it,
right?
At least the way that I understand faith, and I'm not really a person of faith, it doesn't really matter. Like, we don't need those historical like connectors.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Really cool.
Yeah, and that's why we keep mentioning testimony. It's like something we just invest all our time into. I feel like you can spend a lifetime just trying to prove something's real or prove something doesn't exist. Like in one of my classes we learned about global warming, and I was able to spend just as much time on one side as the other, and I found just as much information to prove it was real and to prove it doesn't or isn't. And it was just so interesting that, like, I feel like that's the same with God. It's like you can spend your lifetime trying to prove he isn't real or doesn't exist, or find that he does. So I don't know. I kind of found that what was most important was kind of working on our testimonies, which is reading the Book of Mormon and then praying to God to find out if it's true.
Yeah.
And Jared, kind of go back on your question.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Just like for me, it just made me look at the difference of like fact and truth. Just because something's a fact doesn't necessarily mean that it is truth.
One thing I wanted to also clarify was that Joseph Smith was by no means a perfect person. We call him a prophet. He is a mouthpiece of God, but unfortunately, Joseph Smith was a man, just like any of us. And so he made mistakes, just like we all do. So ultimately, we don't look to Joseph Smith as a perfect being, but he had a very important calling to be the prophet, to restore the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. So I think that's important when looking at this too, because he made mistakes. The prophets of old made mistakes, famously Moses didn't want to return to go visit Pharaoh in Egypt. He didn't want to lead the people. Noah, he made some weird mistakes. If you read the Bible, there's some weird stuff in there, but they made mistakes. They were human, and so they did make mistakes. And I actually think that was a learning opportunity for the prophet, losing the first 116 pages, that allowed him to be like, okay, I need to take this work more seriously. And he did pray, and God gave him an answer no twice, and then he went a third time. He didn't like the answer, so he went back and prayed a third time, and he's like, okay. God's like, go for it, take the 116 pages and give it. And sure enough, Martin Harris's wife was like, let's keep these and let's see if Joseph Smith can do it. And that's what led to this whole debacle in the first place. So ultimately, Joseph Smith was a flawed individual, but we certainly don't fault him, or we don't hold any of our prophets as saints. We're all human beings on this earth that we make mistakes, and we try to make the best of it, and we try to repent and try to better ourselves all the time. So I hope that gives some context, at least as far as Joseph Smith is concerned.
Yeah. So you guys use the word brainwashed cult, and
come join
like sometimes when we use the word brainwashed cult, I mean, we're really just talking about scale here, because I mean, a lot of people, whatever environment that you're brought up in, there is an element of conditioning, and you can just as much as say that that's brainwashing. I guess my question to you guys is, like, if, let's just say, I'm not even talking about Latter-day Saints, but if there is a brainwashed cult, exactly as you would describe it, but it produces happy families and good people, and the rules, the tenets of the cult are good, is that a problem?
That's a great question. What do you think, Jordan?
Well, no, I mean, I was just thinking of Midsummer. Like, I love that movie, which I shouldn't advocate or recommend to any members, but I
can't objectively argue that what they were doing was good, Jordan.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, hammer to the face.
No, okay, but that's not what I'm talking about. Just that image of them all crying together, like there's a camaraderie there. There's like this bond, and I mean, there's something powerful about like connecting with other people and having that love. And I don't know, I just feel like that's such an important part of our churches. I think you even said you had an experience, Jared, with some of the missionaries, just like that service that we provide to others and bringing others to Christ. Like, I don't know, there's just something special about it. So I don't know. I think it's I think it's a beautiful thing if the end result does good for people. I mean, like, regardless to whether or not if we're feeling I feel guilt a lot, and that I know that's another thing that's like part of, they say that's part of our religion and stuff. It's just, there's lots of different things that, you know, maybe we're not a perfect religion. Ty mentioned how our prophets aren't perfect. Nobody is perfect, but I mean, the church itself, I mean, God is perfect. So
I like that, Jordan. And just to add on to what you're saying is ultimately, you know, if I died and there was nothing after this, I certainly don't feel like I'll miss out. Like, so I'm a stereotypical member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints because I've got 2 kids with the 3rd one on the way, and I'm 28 years old. I mean, like, you know, I'm a career man already.
Me feel real old.
And that's not like a brag, but it's like funny because it's like each one of us has served 2-year missions for the church too. Like, I mean, like we did the very, you know, graduate high school, go on a mission, come back, do your schooling, then get married right out of college, or like in college, meet your wife, and then start a family. And while that's not like required, there's no like age limit, there's nothing like that. I mean, like in the culture of Latter-day Saints, there's the gospel, which is like the fundamental teachings and commandments, and then there's like culture, and the culture is very family oriented, giant families. Like that's why you stereotypically hear about these giant 10, 12, 15 member families, but that's definitely not a commandment. So in the end, to answer your question, if I were to die and there is nothing after this, I certainly don't feel like I'll miss out on anything, because ultimately I'm happy with my religion, and it brings me joy and peace and even comfort knowing like where we came from, why we're here, and where we're going. You know, it answers all those questions. So I feel like I can feel a happy, fulfilled life, even if it all turned out to be for not, or it didn't, it wasn't true in the end. So Cameron, how about you? Do you think that, Cameron? You're the youngest of us. I'm curious. You're like, I'm too young for this, or what do you think, Cameron?
No, yeah, definitely. Like, I think that's something I've always thought is kind of interesting, like, because a lot of people would always ask, like, oh yeah, like you're pretty brainwashed, and like a lot of things but like kind of like you mentioned, Jared, there's just a lot of like conditioning that comes with just like no matter what society or group you grow up in high school and in just in every situation. And so that's kind of why I just believe that like it says in the Bible, it talks about it in Matthew. It says like by fruits you'll know them. And so it just talks about like essentially like the fruits, or like the outcome or the outward result of like the actions are kind of is a good demonstration of what it really is. And so that's honestly, it's like if people are doing good and following Christ and like doing good for them, it's like more power to them. And that's why honestly the most important thing is like what you're becoming in the process, not necessarily like all the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've never been a member of the church, but that's very similar to kind of basically the stage in my life right now, and my orientation towards religion in general is very similar to what you just said. And so I kind of want to take us to the end of the episode where the Mormon kid says, you know, maybe he did make it all up. Joseph Smith, who cares? I have a great family. And I want to kind of dramatize this a different way for you guys. And this is kind of a little bit of an overlap with the last question. I'm sure all of you have seen The Wizard of Oz, right?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
So if the leader of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I don't even know if there is one, but let's just say that there is, you know, he lives in Oz, and he takes you to the back of the room, you know, peels behind the curtain and whispers to you all, hey, Matt and Trey are right. None of this is true, but we gave you an amazing life and an amazing family and a rigid moral compass. How would you react to that?
Red pill versus blue pill, right? Am I waking up to discover the truth? You know, am I being well?
Right? But then again, this goes back to my question about, you know, history versus faith, capital T truth versus lowercase t truth.
I would argue.
No, and that's.
Oh, go ahead, Kim.
No, go Ty.
I would just argue, like, when I'm doing good things, I feel good. When I do bad things, I feel bad. It's just like as simple as that. Like, our religion can be very complex, and you can study it a million different ways, and it's great because it's entertaining for adults that, you know, can think comprehensive and critically. But it's also very simplistic. It's just like, we believe in families. We believe that we'll live forever with our families long after we die. And so, would it be mind-bending to think, oh, it was all just to
a means to an end?
Yeah, exactly.
And the noble lie. And the end is a good life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the noble lie. I love it.
I loves the noble lie.
We love the noble lie. We reviewed all Christopher Nolan films, and we talked about the noble lie and how it's like present in every single one of his films. It's really great in The Dark Knight and Prestige, but the noble lie is just, in the end, if it was all for naught, like I said, I certainly don't feel any regrets. But I would be interested to know, like,
yeah, why would you regret? You had a great life. That's
yeah.
What more can you ask from that?
Exactly. And I try to be pleasant. Ditto. Yeah. No. So yeah, any of you listening out there and you're like, it was all a lie, Stephen, you'd be right. It could totally very well be a lie, but in the end, yeah, it's hard to portray also.
Well, and even like, for example, I hate to throw my dad under the bus, but he left the church, and he he went off to do all the stuff he thought he was missing out on. Like, he did all sorts of stuff, all the stuff that they teach us not to do, like not drinking, not sleeping around, just different things like that. And he went out and did that, and now he's talked to me and he's like, you're not missing out. Like, he's like, I could have done without all that stuff. Like,
yeah, that's why we're super big. Like, in our church, we're super big historians. Like, we love reading about history, and that's why we love the Book of Mormon. It's because like one of my football coaches actually said something to me that I really liked. He said, "A smart man learns from his mistakes. A wise man learns from the mistakes of others." And so that's what we try to do a lot in our religion. Is like, there's people who have received revelation to like avoid certain things. And just like Jordan said, there's people from our religion who are like, I'm missing out on something, and they go try it out. Like, man, I wasn't missing out on too much, and there's just like a lot of sorrow and like sad things that come from them. And it's like, God loves us like we're his children, because we are. And so that's what he wants, just the best for us. And so it's like, it's the same thing with your own children. You'd want like, okay, you should avoid doing this. It's like, don't touch
the stove. Yeah, don't touch the top of the stove. It's hot. Trust me.
It's like pay attention in school. It's like, I know it seems so dumb and so juvenile. It's like, and I know it seems like, oh, I'm trying to brainwash you to do good in school, but it's like, it will help you later in life. And then you see it like as you are later in life. Like, man, I'm glad my parents tried to like teach me. I didn't listen a lot when they were trying to say, oh, you should pay attention in school or do stuff like that. But like, you see it in the long term, like a lot of the benefits that come from like obeying the things.
Yeah. And lastly, I just wanted to add, it gives me moral clarity too. I love just light and knowledge comes from God. So I feel like when everything's very clear, I feel at peace. I feel good fundamentally. And when I'm doing wrong, I feel cloudy. I feel like my judgment isn't operating at 100%. So I definitely am grateful that as I choose to live the commandments, as I choose to live this wholesome lifestyle, I am given greater clarity and better perspective on life. So
yeah, and it's not all sunshine and rainbows 100% of the time. Like, maybe the episode portrays us like constantly laughing and having the best time of lives. Like us, we've fought plenty of times. Like, because
shut up, dude.
We're far from perfect.
Yeah, so. Jordan tried to kill me a couple times growing up.
Yeah, all right, that's true. Yeah.
All right, guys, this is my last question because I know it's late for you guys. So this episode of South Park basically makes fun of and casts doubt on the essential story that comes to define your beliefs and define, your way of life. And the episode explicitly calls it dumb. Why aren't you more offended?
Why aren't I more offended?
I think for me, like one of the most important things of life is humor. And I think one of the most important things about like, I don't know, just like any situation, you need to be able to laugh at yourself, because anyone who takes themselves too seriously, I think is like dangerous. Because like for me, like a lot of times I make fun of myself or I'll joke about myself. And I think that just brings a lot of like humility and understanding. Like, that's why we understand, like, and that's why we're not offended, is we understand how, especially from an outside perspective, like it seems pretty crazy. Even within our church, we always joke, we're like, because in high school we have like what we call seminary, so it's like early morning like Bible study, and then we also have church meetings on Sundays, and then we also have like church activities during the week. And so a lot of my high school buddies on my football team would be like, you're spending like almost the same amount of time at your church as you are like at football. They're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is crazy. And that's why I would laugh on them. Like, I know, honestly, there's moments where I'm like, man, I must really love Jesus because this is a whole lot of time. So I think just being able to laugh at yourself and just like make light of it and just, because I mean, obviously their whole point is to like, it's to give us laughter, like their whole show. And so that's why I think taking it too seriously or becoming offended, I think is just, I don't know, kind of like juvenile.
I love that, Cameron. And ultimately, our prophet, Gordon, well, he used to be our previous prophet. He's since passed away. Gordon B. Hinckley once said, they asked him, I think it was a Larry David, I think.
Larry King?
Larry King. Yeah, sorry. It was Larry King. See, I'm missing up my show hosts. Larry King once asked Gordon B. Hinckley, he's like, what do you think about this Book of Mormon musical? It seems kind of irreverent to be poking fun at your faith. And he's like, publicity's publicity, you know, good publicity, bad publicity. Like, ultimately, maybe you watch the Book of Mormon musical and you think it's funny. Maybe you think it's interesting. Maybe you're at least sparks a conversation where you're willing to talk to a missionary walking around with a name tag, or talk to members of the church, you know. And I think that's good, because ultimately we love to discuss our faith. We love to talk about the change that it's wrought in our lives. And ultimately, that's always our invitation. We're just always inviting others to come into Christ. So however you come in contact with the church, I think it's wonderful that if you're willing to sit and listen, we'd love to share what we believe. But we certainly don't want to talk your ear off. So
and give you some Rice Krispies.
Give you some. Exactly. Enjoy these freshly made.
I hope there's some Rice Krispies in the package you sent me.
Squish between the pages. Yeah.
Yeah. Jordan, why aren't you offended?
I am offended.
Now that you say it, yeah.
I'm super offended.
You know, that's such an interesting question, because I was wondering that too. I mean, I listened to your talk about Dave Chappelle and like how so many people are offended by so many things, and I'm like, yeah, why aren't we like in this, you know, cancel culture? Like I think humor, like Cameron said, is so important. Like I think it's fun to, you know, laugh at yourself. And I mean, we grew up making fun of each other a lot, and we still do that as brothers. And I think it's important. And maybe that's what helps. Cameron constantly says that. He says he's really glad he's had brothers to kind of break him down, make him humble. And
there's too many TikTok kids today that, man, I'm like, if I ever posted a video like this, like the thirst traps of like showing how, oh, look how hot I am, like my brothers would have bullied me until like,
yes,
oh, like,
never would have lived it down. I would have posted, never would have let you live it down.
They would have recorded that and played it every single, So that's why I'm grateful for my siblings.
Harsh reality check, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's so important that that everybody kind of laughs at themselves. Like, I think that's so important. Like you've mentioned already, it's therapy. Like watching South Park, honestly, like with all these stress, like I was starting to feel self-loathe. And like, after hearing all these other people talk, like I started like hating myself. I'm like, oh, why do I hate myself so much? But then after watching South Park, seriously, I'm like, oh, who cares? Like, we're just kind of all really dumb. Like we just do dumb things. And I don't know. It was very, therapeutic, also very just.
Jordan is not condoning that if you need psychological help to not
turn to South Park.
Do not just watch South Park.
Forget about your friends. Forget about your family. Forget about your therapy. Start tuning into HBO South Park, and your life will be
all you need is South Park.
Yeah,
but it's fun. I love the episode. I think it's great. There's maybe a few little details in there, like they said Joseph Smith was the only person that saw the golden plates, which wasn't true. That if you read the opening pages, there's 8 people that testified that they saw it as well. So, and even people that left the church, they still never denied it after even they left, that they saw what they saw, and they said they could not deny it. So
cool. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. Again, if you guys want to listen to some people who waited until they were 17 to watch R-rated movies, and then their mind just exploded at all of the amazing stuff they could now watch, check out the Futro Movies podcast.
That's right.
Because their excitement about these movies is contagious, and it's a great podcast. And which one of you guys created the opener for that podcast? Like the little vroom?
Oh, I did that. Yeah.
Dude, that was good. Do you do video work or anything? Or
yeah, I graduated in film, and then I worked in advertising for a while. and it was fun. But my boss, he kept making promises he never kept. But so I stopped working there. But yeah, for a while. And so now we just do it as
their dad even works in film as well.
Yeah,
our father works in
cool.
It's National Geographic. So.
Oh, awesome. Rock and roll.
So real quick, I don't know if there's time, Jared, real quick. I just wanted to, maybe for your listeners, if any of them are interested, if they want to know anything more about the church, they can go to www.churchofjesuschrist.org and they can check out more about the church. And you can also go to www.comeuntoChrist.org and you can go there. It's a great place to go. They explain in better detail than we ever could about the Book of Mormon, and you can actually get one sent to you for free. So,
look at these guys, always on a mission.
And Jared, when will you be baptized?
Oh yeah. Well, I tell you, if it happens here in Finland, it's going to be like -30-degree water, and I might not survive.
That's right.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Before you go, just a reminder, November 5th at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, we are showing the Masterpiece Network. If you haven't seen it, trust me, it's worth it. Join us for our live showing and our live analysis. Link is in the description. Hope to see you there.
Hope to see you guys there. Cheers.
Peace.